Right now on Upfront.
Map madness.
We kind of have a gun to our head, frankly, is really how it's looking right now.
Republicans racing to pass legislative maps written by the state's Democratic governor. Democrats pushing back, all racing against a high-profile high court decision.
Forgive me, but I just don't trust them.
All now in the hands of Governor Tony Evers.
If my maps are approved by the legislature, of course I'd sign them.
The Senate Majority Leader who made it all happen is here. So what's next? Our guest this Sunday, one-on-one with Senator Devin LeMahieu.
And J.R. Ross with the new data, the impact of the governor's maps, and what it all means. Then Wisconsin Trailblazer.
Oh, well, I always hope. I always hope.
Velar Phillips on this what would be her 100th birthday. In her own words, from our archives.
There are times when we must actively participate if we believe in what we say.
Now the push to cement her legacy at the Capitol and across the state. Her son, Michael Phillips, is here with us.
And safe skies. Millions set aside for Wisconsin airports. Safety top of mind just weeks ahead of spring break. Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg just moments away.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and Political Director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The governor this weekend on the clock, a Tuesday deadline to sign or veto his legislative maps.
It comes after the governor told us right here last week if lawmakers approved his maps without any changes, he'd sign them into law, potentially ending a months-long saga and a looming decision from the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Well, Republicans did just that this past week, an overwhelming majority approving the maps drawn by the Democratic governor, just one Democrat in each chamber joining Republicans.
We have a lot to get to, and we're glad Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu is here to talk about it all. Senator, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Let's start with the maps. Have you talked with the governor since the bills were passed?
I have not.
Any idea what he's going to do?
We'll see. He promised he was going to sign them if we sent him his exact maps, and that's what we did. So his word and promise are on the line.
Some Democrats have raised concerns about the implementation date, November as opposed to immediately, which was added. Is this an out for the governor to veto these maps?
You know, he might use that, but that's just standard language. And, you know, there's a potential special election in the 4th Senate District where Senator Taylor was appointed to become a judge. Then it'd be operating, you know, some of that district would be in a different district, so people would be represented by 2 senators. So it's just standard language to put that in there, so that way you have a start with a new election cycle.
Was that put in to protect Speaker Voss from a recall effort as well?
It was not. I asked the Reference Bureau, nonpartisan Legislative Reference Bureau, to draft up the governor's maps as they are, and that's standard language that has been put in maps in the past by Democrats, Republicans, just standard language the Reference Bureau puts in there.
Democrats didn't vote for this on the floor in the Assembly or the Senate. They say they don't trust Republicans. State Senator LaTanya Johnson talked to us just after the vote. Take a listen.
Well, it just kind of makes you wonder why all of a sudden our colleagues are deciding that these are the maps for them and this is the right time. I'm sure these maps, for whatever reason, is favorable to them, and we have to ask why. Forgive me, but I just don't trust them.
Why should Democrats trust you?
Because the Reference Bureau put the governor's maps on as an amendment. We have a memo stating it's the governor's maps. I don't know what mischievous thing we're doing here. It's sort of rich or funny, some of the comments made by the Democrats on the floor. But, you know, I mean, the Senate Democrats are party to the lawsuit. They introduced their own maps, which are really horrible and purely a Democrat gerrymander, and which is, I'm guessing, why all but one of them voted against it.
If the governor signs his maps into law, is this the end?
It should be.
No lawsuits coming from Republicans?
How can we sue on something that there isn't a decision by the state Supreme Court? So I'm not sure how we could.
That's the concern from Democrats, that you're going to turn around and sue and keep this in the courts.
Well, we could sue regardless on anything, but I don't know how you sue when there's not a decision.
So that's not an option that you're considering?
No.
A few weeks left in the session. Let's talk about a couple of the other issues that the Senate will face. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos said this past week medical marijuana likely won't pass this session, and he blamed the Senate. Take a listen.
I still think we have the votes in the Assembly to pass it. I've not had anybody come to me who was a supporter and say they have changed their position. But when we see that the Senate wants to have a more liberal version than one that we're willing to pass, it probably doesn't leave us enough time with the waning days of the session to get an answer that both chambers can adopt.
Do you want a more liberal version than the Assembly bill?
Well, the bill that was introduced by Robin in the Assembly, the Speaker, it created state-run dispensaries, and only 5 in the state of Wisconsin. You know, a lot of our Republicans in the Senate are free market. Why would we grow the size of government? If it's a drug that's being prescribed, why would we only have 5 locations and have it be state employees? So that was the big sticking point. So I mean, calling it conservative or liberal, I'd rather not add more government employees to the situation.
Is there support within the caucus to pass medical marijuana?
You know, I think we could get there, but not with state-run dispensaries.
If it included the private sector, would that change minds? Could that get you there?
Right. And we need, you know, some tight guardrails around there to make sure that it's being prescribed for actual medical uses. But you know, then I think we could potentially get 17 votes there. Similar
to what the Assembly bill has done in terms of the guardrails?
Yeah.
Let's talk about 2024 and the elections. A bill that would allow election officials to start processing absentee ballots a day early passed the Assembly. The goal is cities like Milwaukee to stop what some have started to call ballot dumps in the middle of the night. Results would be able to be processed faster. Is that going to get to a vote in the Senate?
That bill is still sitting in the Senate Elections Consumer Protection Committee. And, you know, if it gets out of committee, we'll discuss it as a caucus, but I'm not sure that we have enough votes to pass that this session.
Do you think it'll even get out of the committee?
I don't think so.
Why not?
I think a couple members of the committee have problems with the bill.
Will Senate Republicans then be to blame in November for these late night results in Milwaukee?
You know, other large cities around the state count their ballots on time. Dane County does a fantastic. They have all their ballots counted shortly after the polls close. They take their absentee ballots, move it out into the places where the resident was supposed to vote, and they count them during the day. Other cities that use central count, like Milwaukee does, they hire enough employees to get their ballots counted on time. So, you know, if this bill doesn't go through, it's incumbent on Milwaukee to count their ballots faster.
So you don't think Milwaukee is counting their ballots fast enough?
Correct.
Do you support this bill personally?
I was the author of the bill in the past.
You were, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you pushing to get it across the finish line?
You know, it's not my job to push or hold back individual bills. I try to make sure that, you know, the bills that get through the committee process, that we have good support and they're good for the state of Wisconsin.
In all this talk of election fraud and security and ballot dumps, wouldn't this help kind of alleviate that?
I mean, like I said, I was the author of the bill in the past.
When we looked ahead at 2024 and the presidential election, the state is going to be front and center, as you well know. You've said previously that you like Nikki Haley in the primary. Will you vote for her if she's still on the ballot in April?
I will.
Will you vote for former President Trump if he is on the ballot and if he's the nominee coming out of Milwaukee?
I will.
You will. You'll attend the convention?
Yeah.
What's your top priority in these final weeks?
Getting the tax bills across the finish line. You know, we started off this session with going into the budget with a $7 billion surplus. We still have over a $3 billion surplus at the end of this budget due to the governor vetoing tax cuts in the budget and then a couple other times. And so this package is tailored sort of towards what he's talked about in the past. With his tax credits, he put $150,000 as the top limit for a married couple, so that's what we're doing for our income tax cuts, child tax care credits to help out with the cost for child care, marriage credits to combat the marriage penalty, and retiree, exempting retiree income from their income taxes to try to keep retirees in the state more than 6 months and 1 day. I think they're all 3 really good tax plans, and hopefully the governor considers them.
A lot we got to, a lot still to get to in the coming weeks. Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
J.R. Ross, editor of our editorial partner WisPolitics.com, dug into the data on the governor's maps. If signed, he identified 21 instances where current lawmakers will be drawn into the same district known as pairings, forcing them to run against each other, move, or not seek re-election. 6 of those are in the state Senate from districts across the state. In the state assembly, 11 pairings featuring Republicans in the same new district, including Assembly Majority Leader Tyler August and freshman Republican Representative Amanda Nedweski. And here, several attempts for Democratic pickups. In the Milwaukee suburbs, Democrat Robin Vining from Wauwatosa and Republican freshman Tom Mikulski from Elm Grove paired in the same new district that JR says leans nearly 60% Democrat. In Milwaukee, Democrat Daniel Reamer paired with Republican Bob Donovan in the new district that also leans 60% Democrat.